What's going on, you guys? Charles from the Traders Corner. Today we're going to be talking about what is factor investing. Now, if you're a newer trader looking to improve their trading or a newer investor looking to improve their investing, definitely subscribe to the channel as we have a ton of content coming out weekly aimed at doing just that. So hope you enjoy it, hope it provides some value, and join us again next time. How's it going, you guys? My name is Charles, and this is the Traders Corner. Now today, we're going to be talking about a hotly debated topic as it relates to investing, and that is what is called factor investing. Now, factor investing is a strategy that chooses stocks based on certain factors or characteristics about the company or also about the macroeconomic environment in a country. Now, factor investing has been employed by a lot of different investors, a lot of different professional investors over the years, and by a few different goats as well. One of the biggest ones being Mr. Buffett himself. Now, make sure you stick around to the end of the video. I'm going to show you how you can get started factor investing today, right? So that being said, let's talk about what factor investing is from a basic standpoint. Now, as it relates to factor investing, there are two types of factor investing, kind of overarching umbrellas. The first one is being macroeconomic factor investing. So that again is caring more about the country that a stock is in and the economic or business environment of that country. And the next style of factor investing is actually called style factor, right? Style factor investing. And style factor investing is where we care much more about the company. Now, as I mentioned before, Mr. Buffett likes to use factor investing, and what he really uses is kind of more style factor investing, specifically around the idea of value and quality, right? And kind of this idea of how healthy is the company and what is the company's value relative to how much cash it's giving off now, right? So that is why factor investing is so important, because certain factors have been shown over time to produce positive returns, right? If you ever heard about Warren Buffett's stock selection, stock selection criteria, pretty much all that criteria is one form of factor, is one form of factor or another, right? So a big thing in his criteria is looking at the return on equity. That would be considered a factor because that shows you how much money the company is making relative to how much equity it has out, right? Now, let's stop talking about what factor investing is and let's talk about how you can get started factor investing today, because it's more of a simple process than you would think. So let's get started, guys. So talking about factor investing and getting started factor investing yourself, Python is a great way for you to figure out which factors mean the most to you and which factors you want to invest in, right? So understanding that there's a lot of different types of factors, obviously you're going to be using Python to do some back testing in terms of buying different securities. Now, obviously back testing, past results isn't indicative of future performance, but you can kind of give that kind of, that probabilistic nature to it, right? If I'm investing in something where over the years it has shown to be, to give a positive return, there's a good probability it'll continue to give a positive return, right? So using Python to do factor investing or do factor investing back testing, we're going to use our good friends over at QuantConnect. And now using QuantConnect, the biggest thing that we want to talk about as it relates to factor investing is really going to be around using universes as it relates to selecting equities. We're not going to be coding a strategy today, but I'm going to show you a strategy that I have that is coded, and it's around, again, using this universe of equities or selecting a universe of equities. Now, selecting a universe of equities, really there's kind of like a two-step process for it as it relates to QuantConnect. Now, it might be different in another backtesting library or package that you might use as it relates to Python, but at least in QuantConnect, you kind of have it start out with the course selection, right? Where the course universe selection, where essentially you tell QuantConnect, I want to add, say 100 different stocks that are all above the market cap of XYZ, or that have a certain dollar volume of XYZ. And we can look at some of the course fundamentals, objects, or attributes that we can filter on to decide here are the hundreds of the thousands of stocks that are out there that I actually want to look at, right? Because if we're thinking about, say, for example, the bot that I'm going to show you guys that I have for factor investing, I do my first course selection based on the fact that it has fundamental data and the fact that it has a certain dollar volume, right? I want the stock to have a certain dollar volume because I don't want to be trading, and kind of trafficking low volume stocks or, penny stocks, all this kind of stuff, especially because I'm a smaller time trader. While there's definitely some value in owning small caps, I don't really personally believe in owning unless I have all the infrastructure to keep up with everything as it happens. It's very hard to invest in things like penny stocks and all this kind of stuff and understand what it is that I'm getting into. So that being said, I'm going to be filtering on dollar volume, and also again I want to see that we have some fundamental data because this will show me that the stock has been around at least for a few years, right? You're not going to have fundamental data if you just started like 3 months ago. And while that might not be a bad investment, that's not really what I'm trying to buy with this stock portfolio, construction bot. So that is using course fundamentals, right? And again, you can see the other attributes that you might be able to use. You can look at things like the adjusted price. You can look at the price. You can look at even just the market that this symbol is in. So if you only want to look at, for example, like bonds in the US, you can do that kind of stuff, right? Or, not bonds. If you want to only look at like certain types of stocks in the US, you can do that kind of stuff, right? And then also what we do once we have that course selection is you want to get down into essentially what's called the fine selection, right? So as we see here, Quant Connect is basically explaining to us how it goes about doing its filter. As you can see here, we have this universe of stocks that has, let's just call it 100, right? And then we'll go through that course selection and select 50. And then Quant Connect will put it through the fine selection filter that you give it. And then it'll select maybe the next 10 or 3, as we can see here, right? And essentially, it's basically the same thing as adding the course selection, but now you have different objects that you can use as it relates to fine selection, right? Because obviously, like the name suggests, it's supposed to be a bit more fine or refined in the stocks that it picks. It's not just going to pick the 100 stocks that has a dollar volume of above 100, right? It's going to have to pick the 100 stocks that have that, and then also the ones that meet the best PE ratio, if that's an attribute you're giving it, or the best ROE, right? Like we talked about before. You can get a look at some of the attributes that you have available to you in Quant Connect. And the nice part is, if a lot of this stuff in Quant Connect, it might look like it's just one line, but a lot of this stuff is, you can click into it, right? So let's look at the operations ratio, and then we'll look at the valuations ratios as well. So what are operation ratios? Operation ratios are essentially this idea like revenue growth, how is it operating, net income growth, right? All this kind of stuff, right? Free cash flow, gross margin, operation margin, right? How does the company operate? Is it operating in a healthy way, seen by how it uses the capital it has, right? And seen by how it gets return on the capital it has and employs that capital, right? And then we can look at valuation ratio, right? Like again, like we mentioned before, that's a big one for Mr. Buffett, these valuations, because he wants to know how much money am I getting for the money that I'm giving up, right? And kind of how frequently do I get that money? And what do I mean by that? Well, if you look at something like free cash flow per share or cash flow from operations per share, that tells us exactly how much per share I'm getting in terms of free cash flow for this company. So let's say I have a company that the stock costs $100 and they're giving off a $10 free cash flow per share. That's a very, very broad, not likely hypothetical, right? They're giving off about $10 free cash flow per share. Well, I know for every $100 I invest in that company, I'm going to be getting $10 back in free cash flow, right? And not only that, not only am I getting the free cash flow, but there's always that appreciation possibility in the stock. Because if a stock is giving off free cash flow like that, then generally it'll be valued higher by investors and likely should appreciate. So this is how you would go about using Python and specifically Quant Connect to start doing your own backtesting and figuring out the factors that you want. And the best part about Quant Connect is it actually has machine learning built into it. So what you can do is you can feed in all of these different ratios, and the machine learning will decide, okay, here are all the possible combinations of these different ratios I can put together. And based on these possible combinations, here's the best combination that I could find for you. So I hope you guys enjoy this video, man. I hope it provides some value to you, and please check it out. If you want to see any more about factor investing or anything like that, or even about my bot as it relates to factor investing, definitely leave a like on this video. And if it gets enough likes, we'll make that into a video as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, man. I hope it provides some value to you, and join us again next time. Thank you.